Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into this video, and today we're going to talk about the doctrine of eternal conscious torment that most Christians hold to today. And I'm going to debunk some of the common arguments used to support this doctrine of eternal conscious torment, that God will torture the unsaved in hellfire forever and ever. So, I'm going to debunk some of the common verses used, and one of the most common verses used is in Revelation 20:10. And before, if you've got any preconceived ideas, then please just, keep an open mind and watch till the end of the video and make up your own mind. So, Revelation 20:10, one of the most common verses used to justify eternal conscious torment. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. Now, first of all, there's no mention of human beings being tormented day and night forever and ever. If we go through down, it does say that death and hell were cast into the lake of fire, as well as anyone not found written in the book of life. But there's no mention of human beings being tormented forever and ever. If we go to Revelation 21, Revelation 21:8, it says, "But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and warmongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part, that which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is a second death." But there's no mention of them being tormented forever and ever. Instead, it says the second death, which applies annihilationism. It implies that they'll burn up rather than being tormented forever. Also, this verse uses very similar language to another passage in the Old Testament. You have to remember that the Revelation is a very symbolic book, and it cannot be taken 100% literally, not at all. It's very symbolic, and we see this if you go to Isaiah 34, verses 8 to 10. In the Old Testament, it says, this is talking about the destruction of Edom. "For it is the day of the Lord's vengeance, and the year of recompenses for the controversy of Zion. And the streams thereof shall be turned to pitch, and the dust thereof into brimstone, and the land there shall become burning pitch. It shall not be quenched night or day, the smoke thereof shall go up forever. From generation it shall lie waste, none shall pass through it forever and ever." Now, notice it uses very similar language. Shall not be quenched night or day. They shall be tormented day and night, and none shall pass through it forever and ever. They will be tormented day and night and ever. So you see the very similar language here. Now, you can go to Zion today and it wouldn't still be burning. Therefore, we cannot assume that the devil, the beast, and the false prophet shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. Also, the beast in Revelation, I'm not sure if it's even a person, an actual person. I think the beast relates to the government's one world order system instead. So, if that's the case, then how can something which is not a being be tormented day and night forever and ever? It doesn't make sense. That's that verse. I'll go to another verse which people use to justify eternal torment, and it's found in Revelation 14:10, and it's about the fate of those who take the mark of the beast. And it says, Revelation 14:9 through 11, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast in his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night, who worship the beast of his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. A lot of people read this verse and just assume it means that they'll be tormented forever and ever. First of all, it doesn't say that. If you read it carefully, it doesn't say they'll be tormented forever and ever. It just says the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever, and they have no rest day and night. Again, it's very similar language. It's in Isaiah 34, verses 8 to 10. And again, the smoke going up forever is often used throughout the Bible, particularly in the Old Testament, to as it doesn't mean smoke going up forever in terms of duration. It's symbolic language to mean smoke that rises forever and ever into the sky. So it doesn't mean literally smoke going up forever in terms of duration of time. It's smoke that goes up forever in terms of distance. It's symbolic, not to be taken literally. After all, I mean, it says the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God. Nobody's going to be drinking wine in hell, so obviously it's symbolic, and it says he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels, in the presence of the Lamb. And obviously again, the Lamb in Revelation is Jesus, and he's not going to be Jesus and his holy angels aren't going to be standing and watching people being tormented with fire and brimstone forever and ever. That's just not going to happen, so we can't take this verse literally at all. Next we're going to go to Matthew 25 46. This talks about Jesus coming back and his second coming, and him judging the world. So we'll start at Matthew 25:31. It says, when the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all of the holy angels with him, he shall sit upon the throne of his glory, and before him shall be gathered all nations, as he shall divide them from one another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was an hungered, and ye gave me meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came unto me. Then the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungered and fed thee, or thirsty and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger and took thee in, or naked and clothed thee? Or when thee sick or in prison and came unto thee? And the king shall answer unto them and say, verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of my brethren, ye have done it unto me. Then he shall say also unto them on the left hand, depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungered, and ye gave me no meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me not in. Naked, and ye clothed me not. Sick and in prison, and ye visited me not. Then shall they also answer him, saying, Lord, when shall we thee an hungered, or athirst, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister unto thee? Then shall he answer them, saying, verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you did it to not one of the least of these, you did it not to me. and these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into life eternal. And at first glance, when it talks about the everlasting fire and everlasting punishment, people automatically assume it means they're going to be tortured by fire forever and ever. But let's hold on a minute. First of all, Matthew 25:41 says, "Then shall he say also unto the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire." And this is the important bit, prepared for the devil and his angels, it says. Not by the devil and his angels. The devil and his angels aren't going to be doing the tormenting. The fire, the everlasting fire, is prepared for the devil and his angels, not for human beings. Even though they're thrown into the fire, the purpose of the everlasting fire is solely for the devil and his angels. Now, when it says everlasting punishment, this people often assume that this punishment is going to last forever. But let's go to, if you go in the Old Testament to Malachi 4, and it talks about Jesus coming back. It talks about the same event, the judgment. If we go here, it says, at the second coming, the proud and wicked will be burned as stubble. Elijah will return before that great and dreadful day. So it's talking about when Jesus returns, his second coming, the day of the Lord. And it says here, for behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, all that do wickedly shall be stubble, and the day that cometh shall burn them up, save the Lord of hosts, and that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and ye shall go forth and grow up as the calves of the stall. And ye shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet. In the day that I shall do this, save the Lord of hosts. So this verse, there's nothing here about people being tortured in hellfire forever. Instead, we see a picture of annihilationism, that they're burning up in the fire, not being tormented forever in the fire. So the eternal punishment in Matthew 25:46 is not eternal torment. It's annihilation, because the punishment is annihilation, and it lasts forever because death lasts forever. So this isn't talking about eternal torment. It's talking about the wicked and the unsaved being burnt up. So another verse that people often use to justify eternal torment is found in Mark 9:46. Where Jesus talks about, sin and hell. So I'll read from Mark 9:45 to Mark 9:46. And if thy foot offend thee, cut it off. It is better for thee to enter halt into life, than having 2 feet to be cast into hell, into the fire that shall never be quenched, where the worm dieth not, and the fire is not quenched. Now, at first glance, this suggests eternal torment, but the word hell here is actually translated from the Greek word Gehenna. If you have a look at this word, it means, it's a verse. It was actually a physical location. It was originally the Valley of Hinnom, south of Jerusalem, where the filth and dead animals of the city were cast out and burned, as fit symbol of the wicked and their future destruction. Notice how it says future destruction and not future, not eternal torments, future destruction. So this isn't a symbol for eternal torment. Instead, it's a symbol for eternal destruction. We see this Gehenna is also symbolized in Revelation as the lake of fire, where the unsaved will be thrown into it and will be burned up and consumed. So the worm and the fire is not what you think it is. It simply means the fire not being quenched. Gehenna was a continuously burning fire where there was continuous burning rubbish, and the worms feasted on the dead bodies. There was also criminals executed there as well. So Gehenna is more of a symbol of capital punishment, like being burned at the stake, rather than a symbol of eternal, never-ending burning. So, if we look at examples in the Bible of fire that's never quenched, this phrase "fire not being quenched" is used elsewhere in the Bible. If we go to Bible verses about unquenchable fire, the phrase is used in the Old Testament. So in Jeremiah 17:27 in the Old Testament, about 2,600 years ago, God said that he would kindle a fire in Jerusalem's gate, which would devour the palaces, and it shall not be quenched. For in this example in Jeremiah, we see that an unquenchable fire is not a fire that burns forever. If that was so, Jerusalem would still be burning. When Jesus said that the fire would not be quenched in Mark 9:43, he meant that it would burn until everything flammable was consumed and that it would go out. This is what happened in the Valley of Hinnom, which Jesus used as a type of the fire into which the wicked will be thrown. Once the residents of Jerusalem stopped throwing the fire into that valley, the fire burned out. So this argument of worms not dying and fire not being quenched is not an argument that justifies eternal torment. Instead, it justifies annihilationism. So, as we see in the Old Testament, there's also examples of unquenchable fire. In Jeremiah 17:27, it said that Yahweh will kindle a fire in the gates of Jerusalem, and it shall not be quenched. The fulfillment of these words is given in Jeremiah 52:13, which states that Nebuchadnezzar entered the city, and all the houses of Jerusalem burned with fire. The fire was not quenched, but went out, and the fuel was consumed. Isaiah pronounced doom upon Eden, which we looked at before, saying that the land thereof shall become burning pitch, it shall not be quenched night or day, the smoke thereof shall go up forever, in Isaiah 34:10. Needless to say, after all was burnt up, the fire went out, the smoke went up, but it is not continuing to do so. Ezekiel used the same terminology. Thus said the Lord Yahweh, behold, I will kindle a fire in thee, and it shall devour every green tree in thee, and every dry tree. The flaming fire shall not be quenched, and all flesh I see that I, Yahweh, have kindled it, it shall not be quenched. Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 47. The prophecy was fulfilled, but the fires that God used have long been extinct, having accomplished their purpose. The conclusion is that God's fire that is not quenched is an irresistible fire that cannot be extinguished, but will complete its work before it goes out. When Jesus spoke of unquenchable fire and worms that die not, he was using Old Testament terminology. Jesus used the terms found in Isaiah. And they shall go forth and look upon the dead bodies of the men that have transgressed against me. For their worms shall not die, neither shall their fire not be quenched, and they shall be an abhorring unto all flesh, which we'll look at in a moment. Jesus, the first thing to note is Jesus spoke in figures on obscure savings. He didn't intend for anyone to cut off a hand or pluck out an eye, but meant for them to understand that it was better to make any sacrifice rather than to lose all of life in Gehenna. The people Jesus addressed had no conception of a place of perpetual torture. No such idea is found anywhere in the Old Testament, but they all knew that Gehenna was a valley just south of Jerusalem. They knew that it was not a place for the torture of living things, but a place for the destruction of whatever was thrown into it. They would understand it symbolised complete destruction, not life in perpetual torment. The worm refers to maggots, bodies of animals, and sometimes that of a criminal who was denied burial as an expression of contempt, might not always fall directly into the fire, and would become breeding grounds for maggots, so that the worms were always present. No one was allowed to disturb the fire, nor would anyone want to, as it was considered an unclean place of shame. So the fire was never quenched, but burned until all was consumed. Jesus was expressing the thought of completeness and finality of the second death. All who suffer that death will be completely and forever destroyed. Another symbol for this is the lake of fire in Revelation 20:14. Neither Jesus nor Isaiah described Gehenna, as many might expect, as a place where billions are alive in flame and torture. Isaiah wrote of burning carcasses and not of living people being burned. So we see here that an unquenchable fire doesn't mean a fire that burns forever. It simply means a fire that cannot be extinguished until it devours and consumes the thing that it's burning. For example, if we go to Matthew 3:12, and this is Jesus talking about his second coming. His fan is in his hand, and he will thoroughly cleanse his threshing floor, and he will gather his wheat into the garner, but the chaff he will burn up with unquenchable fire. Notice how it says burn up. Not burn continuously, but burn up. After the full-born winnows the grain, separating the wheat from the chaff waste, fire is applied, and the chaff is burned up with a roaring flame. What else could John be depicting but the day of judgment, when the redeemed are safely gathered to their home, the rest are put to death, and the world is cleansed? Also, it says in Hebrews 12:29 that for our God is a consuming fire. Example, Matthew 7:19. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. So you see that fire in the Bible is not meant as a place of perpetual torture, but simply as a place of eternal destruction, being burned up and consumed. Another verse that people use, if we go to justify eternal torment, if we go to, again, it's about worms and fire not being quenched. So if we go to Isaiah 66, Isaiah 66:24, and they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of the men that have transgressed against me, for their worm shall not die, neither shall their fire be quenched, and they shall be an abhorring unto all flesh. But Now, those who believe in the traditional view of hell believe this, that they'll be eaten by worms and burned by fire alive continuously. But notice how it says carcasses of men. These are dead bodies. These aren't alive. And if you go a few verses up, it says in Isaiah 66:15, it says, "For behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many." Notice how it says slain, that they sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gardens behind one tree in the mist, eating swine's flesh, and the abomination and the mouse shall be consumed together, save the Lord. This is not talking about torturing people with fire forever. This is simply talking about, as we've seen, fire, the fire burning the dead bodies until they've been fully consumed, and the worm being the worms that eat on the dead body not dying. It's figurative language to mean complete destruction rather than eternal torment. Another verse that some people use to justify eternal torment is found in general Daniel 12:2, which says, "And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt." Now people say if the contempt is everlasting, then they must be kept alive forever. But hang on a moment, because it's contrast with everlasting life, and it says, notice how it says, "and some to shame and everlasting contempt." Only the contempt is everlasting, and this contempt is actually held by the righteous, looking upon the righteous have for the wicked, rather than the contempt of the wicked, of the unsaved. So this verse doesn't prove eternal torment either. And finally, we'll have a look at the parable of the rich man, as that people often use to justify eternal torment. It's found in the 16th chapter of the Gospel of Luke, and it reads, "There was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen, and lived in luxury every day. At his gate was laid a beggar named Lazarus, covered with sores, and longing to eat what fell from the rich man's table. Even the dogs came and licked his sores. The time came when the beggar died, and the angels carried him to Abraham's side. The rich man also died and was buried. In Hades, where he was in torment, he looked up and saw Abraham far away, with Lazarus by his side. So he called to him, 'Father Abraham, have pity on me, and send Lazarus to dip his tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, because I am in agony in this flame.' But Abraham replied, 'Son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things, while Lazarus received bad things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in agony. And besides all this, between us and you, a great chasm has been set in place, so that those who want to go from here to you cannot, nor can anyone cross over there to us.' He answered, 'Then I beg you, Father, send Lazarus to my family, for I have 5 brothers. Let him warn them, so that they will not come to this place of torment.' Abraham replied, 'They have Moses and the prophets. Let them listen to them.' 'No, Father Abraham,' he said, 'but if someone from the dead goes to them, they will repent.' He said to them, 'If they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, they will not be convinced, even if someone rises from the dead.'" Luke 16:19, 31. Now, first of all, there are previous parables which talk about a certain rich man as well. Also, there's no mention here of the torment lasting forever. And also the fact that he was able to talk to Father Abraham as well while he was in hell doesn't make any sense. So this can't be a literal story that's happened. It's simply a parable discussing how rich people will fare worse than during Jesus' ministry, he was often he was against the Pharisees and rich people, saying that it's easier for a rich man to go through. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich person to enter into heaven. So this does not prove eternal torment, because there's no mention of the torment lasting forever, and it is a parable. So there we go. That's probably the hardest one to argue against. But we see that none of these verses, when looked into more deeply, and when compared with other verses in the Bible, actually mean eternal torment at all. They simply mean the opposite, a fire that consumes and burns whatever it's burning. So I hope you enjoyed this sermon. Please like it if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe for more videos, and if you have any comments, pop them down below. But for this video, that's all for now, and thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.